Diane Macedo today on ABC News Live. President Biden is facing new questions after more classified documents were found in his garage from his time as vice president. Hear what we know about that second batch of documents and the timeline of the preliminary investigation. The growing calls for Congressman George Santos to resign. We're getting a first look at his resume as leaders from his own party and district say he needs to step down immediately, why he could face legal trouble. And romance scams on the rise, costing people thousands of dollars. The new tools rolling out in popular dating apps and what you need to know so it doesn't happen to you. But we begin with President Biden facing new questions about his handling of classified documents. The president's lawyers say they found additional documents with classified markings in his garage in Delaware. Earlier, President Biden told reporters he is cooperating fully.
We're going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street. The Department of Justice was immediately, as was done, the Department of Justice was immediately notified, and the lawyers arranged for the Department of Justice to take possession of the document.
I want to bring in Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas, along with White House Correspondent Mary Alice Parks for more on this. Pierre, what's the latest on these documents, and where could this go?
Well, again, the bottom line is this new information that this second batch of classified documents were discovered in the president's garage. And I emphasize that word again, garage. Now, there are very strict guidelines in terms of how classified materials are supposed to be handled. Number one, they're supposed to be in government spaces. They're supposed to be under strict guidelines, sometimes to include spaces where there's surveillance cameras locked in on them, in certain kinds of safes. All these things are put forth by the Intelligence Division, the National Office of Intelligence. And so this is not an insignificant matter. First of all, these documents were supposed to be stored, and the fact that they apparently have been out of place for 6 years is significant. Now, we just gotten some word that the Attorney General is going to hold a press conference this afternoon around 1:15 Eastern. The expectation is that he will address this issue in some fashion. We know that the investigation is entering its final stages, that a lot of this work has been done. But this new revelation may have tipped the scales to the point where the Attorney General feels that he needs to speak to this issue.
Now, Mary Alice, how big of a political headache is this for the president, especially as former President Trump faces his own investigation related to classified documents?
Yeah, Dan, I think the key word there was political in your question. You know, the White House is trying so hard to say that when it comes to any legal question, when it comes to proper handling of documents, they're trying to say they did the right thing as soon as they found these documents. You heard the president there underscore what was in the White House's own statement, that as soon as these documents were found, they reached out to the Department of Justice. They reached out to the National Archives. They worked with them to properly return them and to be transparent about what they had found. I'm not sure that any of that will matter to Republicans who are going to say, look, this is a case of everyone making mistakes. This is more common than Democrats had previously said. We've already seen Republicans trying to sort of draw comparisons and some contrast between what happened with President Biden and what happened with former President Trump. Of course, Democrats and legal experts will say what happened with former President Trump and those documents at Mar-a-Lago was very different in that they didn't return those documents back over when they were asked repeatedly from the Department of Justice to turn things back over. Nonetheless, I think Republicans are just going to continue to pounce on these headlines around President Biden, and it will absolutely be a political headache for this White House.
Mary Alice, the House Oversight Committee already said it's also investigating this issue. Could this whole situation hamper the president's ability to work with House Republicans on legislative issues?
Oh, absolutely. If they take more time working on investigations that the White House views as inappropriate, or they have a lot of back and forth with turning things over or not, it could make it really hard for the White House to get Republicans to vote on essential legislation. It could just sour a relationship that's already very tough. You know, I will say that this White House was expecting tough investigations from House Republicans. I think this is just adding to a long list. Diane.
Where do both of these investigations go from here? The one at the Justice Department and also the one with the House Oversight Committee?
Yeah, I think the first question is the one that Pierre was talking about. We have to see if the Department of Justice is going to appoint a special counsel to look specifically into this matter. You know, it's hard to know. It's hard to say right now what their thinking is. On the one hand, if it's true that the White House and the Biden team was extremely transparent here, then maybe the Department of Justice doesn't feel like that's necessary. But if they feel like there was any moment where the president was involved or that something was kept, you know, more secret or more quiet, there's any indication of that, then I think it's really possible the Department of Justice decides a special counsel, an outsider, is necessary to make sure that this is transparent, that it doesn't have the appearance of in any way being political. So I think that's kind of the first question in terms of the DOJ's investigation. And then we're hearing from House Republicans, you know, they're already demanding that the Director of National Intelligence do a damage assessment and send them more information. Diane.
All right, Mary Alice Parks, thank you. And calls are growing for George Santos, embattled Congressman George Santos, to resign, even coming now from his own party and his own district. It comes as we get a first look at his resume. Congressional correspondent Rachel Scott has the latest.
Embattled Republican Congressman George Santos under pressure to resign, facing growing calls from his own party to step down.
He's not welcome here. He's disgraced the House of Representatives, and we do not consider him one of our congresspeople.
It's the most direct rebuke from Republicans yet. Local officials calling Santos a stain on the House of Representatives. But the Long Island Republican is defiant.
Congressman Santos, will you resign?
I will not.
Will you step down?
I will not.
New York Republicans are calling you a disgrace. You will not resign?
Pardon me?
What is your response to New York Republicans?
Trying to get in the elevator. Excuse us.
Santos has already admitted to lying about his experience and biography. ABC News obtaining the resume he gave to the Nassau County Republican Party, claiming he worked for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup. He never did. And claiming he graduated from Baruch College with a 3.89 GPA that ranked him in the top 1% of the class. That was a lie, too. He never graduated from any college. Santos asserts he just embellished details of his background. But now he's facing new allegations that he illegally used campaign funds to pay for personal expenses like rent. Santos insists he did nothing unethical, and the new Speaker of the House is standing by him.
Do you think take any action against him at this point?
Is there a charge against him? You know, in America today, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Kevin McCarthy insisting all this will be up to voters to decide in the next midterm election.
One thing I think, it's the voters who made that decision. He has to answer to the voters.
Diane, Kevin McCarthy told us that Congressman George Santos will still receive his committee assignments. Santos did support McCarthy's bid to become the next Speaker of the House. And with that razor-thin majority in the House, McCarthy will need his support as well. Diane.
All right, Rachel Scott, thank you. And I want to bring in ABC's Jay O'Brien live from Capitol Hill for more on this. Jay, Speaker Kevin McCarthy says that he will let Santos on committees, just not the top ones. So how is that going to work? Because he's also saying that Santos needs to earn trust and is far away from that at this point.
When he just said that a moment ago in a press conference, Diane, saying that Santos has a long way to go to earn trust. He won't get on to primary committees. He won't get, as McCarthy says, any kind of security clearance or something of that nature, which some members of Congress do get because of their committee assignments. But Republicans are signaling, as they've been signaling over the last few days, that they want to handle the Santos problem internally. They do not want to publicly punish him. As we've heard from multiple members, I just spoke with a number of members today, they want the voters of Santos's district to be the ultimate deciders here. One exception to that are New York Republicans, some of Santos's fellow New York Republicans, a number of whom have come out and said that they want Santos to resign because he disrespected, deceived the voters of his district. So there are some members who are calling for Santos's ouster, but it is not Republican leadership right now. They are saying that he is seated, he is a member of the House GOP conference, and all of this is going to be taken up instead of leadership by the Ethics Committee. Diane.
Well, and as you say, McCarthy says it'll be up to the voters. The voters won't get to make that call until 2024. But he does say that he will go before the Ethics Committee. So how does that process work?
Well, that is a long process. It's a drawn-out process. There is not much in the House rules. There's not much in the Constitution. There's not much in federal law that can oust a sitting member of the House of Representatives. Even if you get indicted or convicted of a crime, you can still be a member of the House of Representatives. Now, you can't sit on committees. House GOP rules say that if you're indicted, you can't sit on a committee, but you can still be a member of Congress. So there's not much they can do other than pressuring Santos to resign. And again, we have seen that GOP leadership does not have an appetite for that. One of the reasons that we've heard is that Republicans don't want to have a special election in Santos's district and put that district up for grabs, given their slim majority right now in the House.
Hugo, I want to ask about these two anti-abortion bills passed by the House majority. We heard House Speaker Kevin McCarthy touting this among the accomplishments in their first 5 days. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is already saying this is doomed. Both of these bills are doomed in the Senate. So what exactly would these bills do, and what's the strategy if we already know they're not going to pass the Senate?
Well, their strategy is writ large, as we've seen with repeated bills coming out of the House, is what is called a messaging bill, which means it's a bill that passes with a message but is not necessarily intended to or thought to become law. So we saw it with the anti-abortion bills yesterday. We've seen it with repeated pieces of legislation coming out of the House this week, things that will likely be dead on arrival in the Senate because the Senate is controlled by Democrats. That is a high bar for House Republicans to clear, to get a piece of legislation that could pass in that Senate. So instead, what they're doing is they're passing legislation that will force the Senate's hand, force them to consider the issue, and it likely will die in that chamber. It is part of a continued strategy of House Republicans saying, look what we're doing on day one, not necessarily making a law, but pushing an issue. It's the other thing we're going to see when they open these continued investigations into President Biden, the Biden family, things of that nature. One of the things we've heard from House Republicans this week and last week is their priority, one of their biggest priorities, is not necessarily legislation as much as it is oversight and investigations into this administration, Diane.
All right, Jay O'Brien, we appreciate it. Thank you. And the suspect in the Idaho college murders is in court today after being charged with 4 counts of murder. The 28-year-old PhD student is currently being held without bail. The judge also sealed the search warrant for his apartment after prosecutors argued that releasing those details could jeopardize the case and put the public at risk. And it's another chaotic day in U.S. airports after yesterday's FAA computer system failure grounded all flights across the country for hours yesterday. ABC News transportation correspondent Gio Benitez is at LaGuardia Airport with the latest.
The FAA saying the catastrophic computer outage that led to an aviation meltdown in America was caused by a damaged database file. A senior official telling ABC News that file appears to have been a single engineer's mistake. During routine maintenance of the critical FAA computer system, the engineer reportedly replaced one file with another, not realizing what he had done even after chaos ensued and flights were canceled and delayed from coast to coast.
When there's a problem with a government system, we're going to own it, we're going to find it, and we're going to fix it.
It took all day for airlines to get planes back in the air. About 9,000 delays, more than 1,000 cancellations.
A lot of frustration, a lot of confusion.
This is something out of the control of the airlines right now.
Lou Mangello's flight from Orlando to Los Angeles already started boarding when suddenly everyone was forced off.
Everybody deplaned very quickly, very orderly.
The Notice to Air Missions Computer System, or NOTAM, delivers critical safety information to pilots before taking off. To fix the issue, the FAA ordering the nation's first national ground stop since 9/11.
We just can't fly without that system.
Experts have long said the system is outdated. A source telling us a newer system would have caught that bad file.
And we know the meltdown with Southwest Airlines just a few weeks ago was also blamed on outdated systems. Without a doubt, the calls for a new FAA computer system, those calls are only now growing. Diane?
Gio Benitez, thank you for that. We're hearing Russian President Vladimir Putin has let go of his top commander, replacing him as the war in Ukraine intensifies. Analysts say the move indicates Putin is growing frustrated with a series of setbacks despite some recent gains in eastern Ukraine. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, is in Ukraine with the latest.
A snap move, Vladimir Putin replacing Russia's top general in Ukraine. With the battle for a pair of key towns in Ukraine's east becoming the bloodiest of the war so far, Russian President Putin showing his frustration, demoting his top commander, General Sergei Surovikin, known as the Butcher, for his brutality in Syria, replacing him with Valery Gerasimov, a Kremlin insider who planned the initial invasion last February, which then stalled and was beaten back. And after months of setbacks on the battlefield, on Wednesday, Russia claiming to have taken the town of Soledar. But Ukraine counters the bitter fighting there is ongoing. This satellite imagery showing before and after pictures of the town of Soledar. The craters, those high-rise apartment buildings, turned to burnt-out husks. Here, Russian soldiers can be seen coming under withering Ukrainian gunfire in Soledar. Explosions later engulfing the Russian position. Soledar is a crucial prize for the Russians, who hope to take it as part of their effort to overrun Ukrainian positions in the strategic city of Bakhmut, just a few miles south.
Diane, in October, Russia announced it was mobilizing about 300,000 troops. That's when we saw those incredible lines of young Russian men trying to leave the country. Well, now, this morning, Russia saying that those 300,000 have finished their training in Belarus and Russia. They're now moving towards the front line. And as Ukraine is soon to obtain battle tanks and fighting armored vehicles, U.S. military officials tell me they expect the fighting to increase significantly in the coming months. Diane.
All right, Matt Gutman, thank you. And Buffalo Bills safety Demar Hamlin is back home after being discharged from the hospital. Hamlin has yet to return to the Bills facility, but he's already inspiring the team ahead of their wild card matchup with the Dolphins on Sunday. ABC's Trevor Ault has the latest.
Just 10 days after millions watched as his heart stopped mid-game, Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin is back home, discharged from the hospital.
It's a blessing, you know. Like, that just shows the type of kid that he is, that he's fought and he's continuing to win. Christmas came in January, and thankful to get these presents.
The Bills announcing Hamlin underwent a comprehensive evaluation Tuesday, including cardiac, neurological, and vascular testing. His doctor says he's confident in the 24-year-old's continued rehabilitation at home and with the team.
This is the last thing you want to see.
It's an incredible turnaround from last Monday, where first responders had to perform CPR mid-field to save his life. Hamlin then rushed to the Cincinnati ICU, sedated on a ventilator because he couldn't breathe on his own. Doctors have been working to determine the cause of his cardiac arrest.
They'll be monitoring his heart over a prolonged period of time for any sign of an arrhythmia. And they'll probably even do outpatient monitoring on him to see if he's got any evidence that there's electrical instability.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott says Hamlin will be welcome at their training facility as soon as he's ready. He's already inspiring the team as they head into the playoffs this Sunday.
As Damar's dad has said to us multiple times, and Demar has mentioned as well, it's, you know, they want us to go do our job, and that's what we've got to do.
And a lot of fans are now wondering if Damar Hamlin could play again. And doctors have said it's still entirely too early to tell. But the best case scenario is he's back to his old self from before the cardiac arrest, meaning it is possible we could someday once again see Damar Hamlin in a Bills uniform playing NFL football. Diane?
So many fans, fingers crossed, looking forward to that, Trevor. Thanks. And coming up, romance scams are on the rise with millions of dollars lost each year. Hear how top dating apps are getting together to now help users avoid being taken. Stay with us. Welcome back. Romance scams are on the rise, and it's costing some victims thousands of dollars. Now, some popular dating apps are deploying new tools to help users avoid being taken advantage of. Rhiannon Nally has the latest.
Single mother of three Christine Settingsgard was hoping to find love on a dating app, but instead, she connected with a swindler that duped her out of thousands of dollars.
He's like, will you please just deposit the check into your account and then wire me the money? Yes, of course, looking back, like, I see the red flags, but at that time, like, I was like falling in love with him and I had no reason not to trust him.
She says the person then used her phone account information to buy several iPhones and racked up a $4,000 bill in international calls.
It's not even just the money, it's the money, but then it's, you know, my mental health, my physical health, my ability to trust people, my ability to care for my kids.
And she's not alone. The Federal Trade Commission reported that romance scams accounted for the highest losses compared to any other type of scam, with over $300 million lost each year since 2020. Now Match Group, which is the parent company of apps like Tinder, Hinge, Match, and Plenty of Fish, this week rolling out an initiative created with finance experts and law enforcement to help warn daters and to protect against different forms of online fraud, which will send in-app messaging and email notifications to users about potential online scams and suggesting tips like making sure your matches have verified profile pics and video chatting before meeting. And experts say there is even more you can do.
Even outside of the app, get a Google Voice phone number so that you don't have to give anybody your real cell phone number. Always offer to meet somebody out for a date in a place that you're comfortable with. And always tell a friend or a loved one where you are when you go out for a date.
Good to know, Rhiannon and Allie, thank you. Coming up, a baseball double take like you've never seen. These are two different people. We will explain when we come back. Welcome back. It's a baseball double play like you've never seen. Two athletes who share the same looks, the same name, even the same job, are now sharing how they first crossed paths and what life has been like for them ever since. ABC's Will Gans has more on the minor league baseball doppelgangers.
This is Brady Feigl, and this is Brady Feigl.
I feel like Brady is not a very common name to begin with, but then Feigl on top of that.
But somehow, they're not the same Brady Feigl.
We both wear glasses. We both have red hair. And we were like, the fact that we both play baseball and at the professional level.
Not the same person, but perhaps a real-life parent trap?
We're like twins.
One half of this Brady bunch joining us to help make a double play.
I'm the one from Maryland, and a little bit older.
Our Brady first found out about the other Brady when he was asked to autograph a game card.
They're like, oh, can you sign it? I'm like, that's not me.
The doppelgangers' paths almost crossing again in 2015 when they had the same elbow surgery from the same doctor.
He had his a little bit before me, so when I showed up, they pulled his file. They're like, didn't we just do your right arm? And I was like, no. I was like, just make sure you do the right arm, like the correct arm, please.
Finally, after becoming an internet obsession, the lookalikes met up and took a DNA test to see if more than coincidence was at play.
Pretty much found out that we're not related, but I've had numerous people on like Twitter. They're like, you need to do this test. It goes back 16 generations. I'm like, okay.
But a bond there nonetheless.
Maybe one day we can be on the same team and he can like start a game and I can close one. And that'd be pretty cool to see across the ticker at the bottom. It's like Feigl got the win and Feigl got the save. Like that'd be pretty cool.
An entire stadium of Feigls in the stand.
A study that came out a few months ago suggests that doppelgangers like the Bradys probably share DNA with one another, even if they're not related. And the lead researcher takes it one step further, saying, I think all of us right now have somebody that looks just like us, a double. Mine is obviously Chris Hemsworth, right, Diane?
Oh, absolutely. I can see the resemblance. Striking, Will. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. I'm Diane Macedo. Do stay with us as ABC News Live continues with more news, context, and analysis.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.